Well, good afternoon. And if it is morning or evening on the replay, welcome, welcome, welcome to Shared Vision, Shared Voices, Inclusive Leadership in ECE, our very first Lean Lattes and Learning for 2025. Actually, it's our very first, right? But the first one for 2025. So welcome. We appreciate you being here. You can go ahead, Ash. Yeah, so welcome, welcome. And before we get started, we are going to have a word from our president, Tatiana Elmore.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for spending your lunch with us. Either you're having a latte or Coca-Cola or Pepsi, but we're super excited to have you be a part of our first Leadership and Equity Advanced Network, our Lean Gathering. Thank you all so much for being here. We hope that this space will allow you to grow, learn, and also network with others. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. But we are excited to have you on this journey, and we look forward to the conversation today. Welcome, everyone. Awesome. So BCDI-Atlanta, our mission is to advance the quality of life for Black children and families. We are a membership-based organization that is led by the board of directors. As Sharon mentioned, I am the newly appointed president of BCDI-Atlanta, but I've been the previous treasurer for the last 6 years. We have our board of directors here. We have a mixture of educators, family engagement, consultants as a part of our board to again advance the quality of life for our children and families here in Georgia. We hope to see you at our summit on Wednesday, February 19th, where you can meet our board of directors as well. And we have a wonderful member on the call today, Mr. James Young. You will also get the pleasure of meeting Mr. Young as well. He has been a pioneer in the work that we have been doing as a part of the National Black Child Development Institute. Next slide. Thank you all so much.
It might help if I unmute myself. Just to give you a little bit of an overview about our session today. We know that in the landscape of ECE, early care and education, there has been an influx of more cultural diversity. And in today's climate, so we wanted to highlight, right? Talking about leadership and your cultural intelligence, your style, how are you inclusive in including your staff? I know we pay attention to inclusivity with children, but what about the staff? As well as shared leadership. So it's twofold, right? We want to acknowledge the cultural diversity of our staff, and we also want to think about sharing the leadership with our staff because there are so many voices, and thus the title for today, that we want to have a shared vision and shared voices in our ECE program. So we hope as a result of today's session that you will be able to analyze key components of shared leadership and create collaborative decision-making processes within your ECE programs. We hope that you will be able to develop strategies for recognizing, valuing, and integrating diverse cultural perspectives when working with staff, children, and families. And then we want you to create an actionable plan to put all of that new knowledge into practice. Okay. So anytime we're talking about sensitive issues, we will hear people say, oh, this is a safe space. But I'd like to offer you, not only is it a safe space, but it is a brave space. It is a space where we want you to feel okay with not being okay. And we want you to be willing to share your experiences, ask your questions, and share with one another, because in our discomfort, in our disequilibrium is where most of our wonderful learning takes place. Next slide. All right. And so these are our brave space agreements. I'm not going to read through all of them because I respect the fact that we are all adults in the field. But I am going to just highlight that we want to acknowledge discomfort. If there's something you don't feel comfortable with, you don't necessarily have to acknowledge it to the group, but at least acknowledge to yourself that, hey, I'm not feeling really comfortable with this. We want to set conversation norms. We want you to speak only from your own experience because there will be some small group activities. And sometimes we come back and tend to share what somebody else said, but we want you to share what your experiences are. And then we want to make sure that you understand that everything is not going to be resolved today. We have less than 2 hours now together to go through all of this information and share with one another. So we want you to know that the conversations should continue once you leave this session. All right. Well, we're going to have a pretty cool icebreaker that I found since it is Valentine's Day today. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. I hope that you are having joy, laughter, and love today. So we're going to introduce ourselves and we're going to do it in a fun way. We are going to do candy heart introductions. So you see how on the candy hearts there are messages? I want you to think about a message that speaks to who you are, right? So I'm going to use my message. I'm going to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Sharon, and I am the collab queen. I call myself that because I love, love, love to work with people in collaboration to make things happen. All right. So, with that being said, you can jump right in. We're not a huge group yet, so you can come off mute if you'd like. You can put it in the chat, whatever it is that you decide to do.
Hi, I'm Dion Gant from Vegas, and my candy heart would be good vibes because I always try to manifest good vibes in everything I do.
Awesome. Thank you, Dion.
Hi, my name is Deborah Davis. I'm from Atlanta. My candy heart message would be ask me. I'm an educational consultant, a retired teacher. I have my own educational services company, and I welcome questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Deborah.
I would say for me, as we started our January affiliate meeting, excited because I'm so excited about BCDI-Atlanta and the work that we're doing together as a community. So excited. And probably I'll draw a smiley face.
Thank you, Tatiana.
Um, my name is Shantanae. Everyone calls me CC. I think my candy heart would be you're a tiger, because I'm a hard worker, and regardless of whatever's going on at any time, I'm gonna do my best to learn and keep going.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm
All right.
Yvonne
Oh,
Hart. Sorry.
go ahead, Yvonne. No, go ahead.
I'm Yvonne Hart. I'm in Columbus, Georgia. And I think my candy heart would be love her because in 2025, I am being intentional about me. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you for joining us all the way from Columbus today. So I'm going to move forward, but if you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself, please feel free to put it in the chat. And I'm just going to make this announcement one more time. Please put your name and Georgia PDS number if you want to receive right from the start credit for this session. So we're going to take a few minutes now to finish these statements. So let me see if I can find mine. Zoom changes all the time. If you can find your annotate button, and oddly enough, I cannot find mine. That sucks. Oh. Okay. Well, maybe we won't get to annotate. That's interesting. Anyway, so what we can do.
Sharon,
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but when I hover over my screen, I have a little circle with what looks like a pen in the lower left-hand corner. That's annotate. That's your annotate.
Oh, I see. Thank you, Yvonne. See, it used to be on the bar. Good Lord. Ah, we have to all work together. All right. So what we're going to do is press that little green pencil in the circle to the left of your screen. And at the very top, well, right underneath the arrow, there's a T. If you click on that T and then you click on the whiteboard, let me say, it will give you a text box. The best leader I know always listens to ideas. And then that didn't quite put it all in there, did it? Anyway, if we can get that to work, we'll get it to work. I love to learn out loud. If not, then you can put your answer in the chat. And again, you can come off mute. So I'm just going to erase what I put up there and see if you all can do a better job than I did. And so there are 4 good. A great leader makes me feel the best leader I know always. In my culture, leadership means, and my leadership superpower is. Awesome. I see some things coming in. Maybe I'll try it again. Maybe. Oh, my annotation. Oh, there it is. All right.
The owners also implemented a loyalty system to reward repeat customers. Since then, the staff was happy. Business is booming. We will be happy. And Classic American, voice to come. Classic success.
I did it. Awesome. Awesome. I'm seeing some great answers come in. Some of them are overlapping just a little bit, but that's okay. Community service, awesome. Uh-oh, somebody just erased their optimism and humor for their leadership. All right, Stacy Neal said empowered and motivated. I don't know. I'm thinking that might be a great leader makes me feel. So as we're looking at all of the answers coming in, anybody making any connections or feeling connected to what's being put up on the whiteboard? And if you'd like to share, you can definitely come off mute and do so.
We definitely have a common norm as a great leader making you feel valued. So that is really good to see.
Awesome. And that's important. I don't know if I can work at my best level if I don't feel valued.
The second box at the top, there's a lot of listening and communicating going on with that box.
Okay. Yes. So feel valued, being listened to. Okay. And then down at the bottom, these superpowers are amazing. Whoever put attention to detail, we would make a great team. I am such a big picture person. Yes, Eva, I am such a big picture person, right? And that attention to detail, I always need support with that piece. So as we move forward with the session, I want you to keep these things in mind, right? And hopefully all of us are leaders in some way or shape or form. We're either leading a program, leading a team, or leading a classroom. Maybe we're leading parents, right? And so I want you to keep all of these things in mind when you think about yourself as a leader. We can go to the next slide. Uh-oh, wait a minute. We have to erase the, let me erase all of, where's the clear the board? Oh, somebody got it for me. Thank you, whoever did that. Guess I need another Zoom class. So as we talk about shared, look, I thought I knew a lot. I don't know as much as I thought I did. So as we talk about shared leadership, if I could get someone to volunteer, if you can see it clearly, to read what is shared leadership.
I'll read it.
Okay.
What is shared leadership? Shared leadership occurs when each employee takes ownership and responsibility for their role. In effect, shared leadership enables each employee to shoulder their work without the oversight of a command and control manager.
Ooh. Yes, that micromanager. I do not work well with micromanagers. Sometimes might need a little nudge, but I definitely don't need micromanaging, right? Thank you so much for reading that for us, Deborah. And some of the principles of shared leadership is collective responsibility, right? That's also one of our Kwanzaa principles that we talked about back in December, right? And also distributed expertise. Everyone is an expert in their own right. And so we should value each person for what they bring to the table. Transparent decision making. And so that's just about leadership, not making decisions behind the scenes, or even classroom staff, not making decisions behind the scenes, right? That you don't know about, that just catch you off guard and catch you by surprise. And then intentional empowerment, right? In shared leadership, great leaders want to empower their staff, their program staff, their families, even the children, right? You want to empower them to be able to also share in the decision making of what happens in the program as much as possible. Okay, next slide. And so the benefits of shared leadership, I think shared leadership helps to create a climate where you might see improved staff retention. The quality of your program might increase and improve. Innovation in what you see happening, the ideas that people are coming up with, as well as just stronger team engagement. So there are some programs where people come to work. Nobody here, though, I don't think anybody in this room or anybody watching has a program like that where you just kind of go to work, do your job, leave, and go home. But a shared leadership climate makes you feel included. You might feel okay about going above and beyond at times, because you also know when you may have a challenge, that because the climate is such that everyone is supportive, that you can feel okay about going to leadership, letting them know that you need some support from them. All righty. So now I'm going to ask you to take a look at A, B, C, and D. And I want you to think about yourself as a leader. And if you are, this is in the language of leadership at a program and staff. But if you're in the classroom, you can think of it as yourself and the children, or yourself and the families, right? So do you make full directed decisions? You just make the decision as the leader, and it is what you say. Do you consult with your staff or your families and children? Do you have a collaborative decision where everyone is able to come together and give their input and share ideas? Or do you let your staff, or do you let your families and children lead most of the decisions that are made? So I want you to choose whether you are A, B, or C. Oh, okay. Thanks for sharing, Stacy. You can share if you'd like. You don't necessarily have to, because what we're going to do now is we're going to put you into small groups. And the small groups in breakout rooms, we're not going to put them according to what you put on, we're not going to put you in the rooms based on your letter. We're just going to put you in the room because we don't know how it's going to come out. And we just want you to share and discuss the following questions. If you can put them up.
Before you get to the question,
Uh-huh.
this is a difficult decision for me because depending on the circumstances, depending on the group, depending on the environment, I might be all four of these. I might fall on the spectrum of either one. It depends on the situation.
And Deborah, that's usually what happens with continuums, right? Depending on where we are in life, depending on what's going on, we could fall anywhere on the continuum. So let's just pick one for the sake of representing yourself in that particular situation. Who are you mostly? Okay. And then the next slide has the questions that you are going to answer in your small groups. You want to think about what influenced your choices and how might different cultural perspectives impact these decisions. So in thinking about what your choices were, how does your culture play a part in the decision that you made? Or does the culture of your program or classroom and families make a difference in what type of leadership decision making you chose? And so I'm going to also put those questions in the chat. If you can, you may want to take a picture with your phone right quick, because it's going to take me a couple of seconds to get it in the chat for you. And I am going to give you all about 8 minutes in your breakout rooms to have this discussion, and there'll be 3 to 4 people in each group. All right. So I'm gonna, wait a minute. I need to move. They've got to hold on, because let me ask Ashley and Tatiana, do you plan to go into a breakout room?
I can participate.
Okay.
I will man the main fort if you don't mind. I got you. Make sure everybody gets in properly.
Okay. Well, then I'm just gonna move somebody real quick to another room so that they will be okay. All right. So I'm gonna open the rooms. You all, when you see the join, just join the room, and we'll see you back in the main room in 8 minutes. Not everybody, almost everybody. All right, people are coming back. I see they're back because the breakout rooms has kicked everyone out.
Sure did.
It has beamed you back. Well, welcome back. Welcome back. I am so interested to hear some of the highlights from your conversations. And just remember that we're sharing our own experiences. So if I get a couple of volunteers to share, that would be great.
Okay. I wasn't sure if Miss Deborah was going to share. So what was nice about the conversation is learning how, as you mentioned earlier, the spectrum. In some roles, you do have to play certain levels of leadership. For example, with BCDI Atlanta, as the president, yes, I am the president, but we're a membership-based organization. So our members and our participants, they have to have buy-in, but also our board. You know, I can't have this great idea and move forward without the board support. I like being in that position where it is a collaborative and staff or member-led decisions, because all input is thought about, it's considered, but also those that are responsible for it will have input on the work that they're doing as well. And so that was a great activity.
Awesome. Thank you for that insight, Tatiana. Anybody else want to
I
share?
can share.
Okay.
My group just discussed how sometimes, like she said, sometimes you play a different role, but it's important for everybody to feel included. And even brought up the fact that a lot of times people let things that happen in their past prevent them from moving forward. Like say a coworker don't follow through on something that they were supposed to do, and it kind of breaks the trust. But if we, are being good leaders and positive leaders, we would go forward anyway, providing more opportunities that could later create a bigger bond so that we can, collaborate and become a more positive and effective team.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Miss Cece. One more. Do we have one more brave soul?
I can go. We had a discussion about being collaborative, and much like the other folks were saying, the amount of how this rolls out really depends on the decision being made and on the role and a lot of different factors. But we also talked about how transparency can be needed if you are really being collaborative, and just what that looks like. I work for Sheltering Arms, and we recently closed down 2 of our locations. So I just shared that we weren't necessarily able to be as collaborative as possible just because either we didn't have all of the facts or we weren't at liberty to share all of the facts, and what that looks like and how that impacts the people who the decision ultimately impacted.
Wow. Yeah. It's a good example. Sometimes we don't have control over our shared leadership, and we can share as much as we can, but sometimes it's not enough. Thank you for that, Alejandro. Thank you so much. All right. Well, thank you all for engaging in those meaningful conversations. It always helps when we can give you an opportunity to talk, and I don't have to do all the talking. Okay. So now we're going to move on, and we're going to talk a little bit about understanding cultural intelligence. Go ahead, Ashley. I'm sorry. And so cultural intelligence it was new to me. This was new information even for myself, right? And it actually gave a cultural intelligence quotient, like our EQ, our emotional intelligence, we call it an EQ. This one is our cultural intelligence. And so it's a CQ, okay? And there are 4 components. So one is your motivation, your drive, your motivation to learn, right? Because sometimes people don't care about who you are and your lifestyle and how you live and your background and what kind of things you like. They're just interested in you doing the work. And then you have knowledge, right? Understanding how culture differs and how it shapes behavior. So sometimes you can understand people better if you understand their culture. You'll understand why they may think the way they think or do the things that they do. The third component is your strategy. And this is your ability to even make sense of diverse experiences. I know that sometimes people think that they know, but they really don't know because they haven't. You know how they say if you can walk a mile in another person's shoes, some people find that very difficult to do. And so having your strategy to be able to walk that mile is very helpful. And then the fourth one is action. This is where you can adapt your behavior in different cultural contexts, right? And so you act in a way that will be respectful to the different cultures or the person that you're working with. And so sometimes I always use the example in childcare that in America, in our culture, we want children to be independent. We want them at 2 years old to be able to do things for themselves. But in most countries, I'm not even going to say some, most other countries, childhood is very valued and very respected. And the adults allow the children to really be dependent children because they do understand at some point they really are going to become more independent and not need them as much. So we need to adjust our behaviors sometimes based on what we are working with. And I, for, I forgot to mention in the very beginning, and I'm glad I thought about it because it's coming up soon. There was a link for you to get your workbook. Did everybody get that? Because if not, we want to put it in the chat so that you can download it because you are going to need it for a small group activity coming up. So I'm going to grab that link right quick for you. And I am going to put it in the chat because a lot of this information that I'm sharing that's on the PowerPoint slide is in your workbook. But because you showed up today, for everyone who showed up and who registered, you will get a copy of the PDF copy of the slide presentation as well. But your workbook is chock full of this information. Okay, Ashley. And so when you think about your cultural intelligence, right? How does that impact your style of leadership? Well, if just like emotional intelligence, right? If it's kind of low, you really have a hard time managing your own emotions and even really being able to understand someone else's. So it's the same thing with your cultural intelligence, right? It will impact how you lead and how you interact with your staff and your families and your children based on where you fall. So if your CQ is really low, then you might not have a good grasp of the cultural differences and you might not even really pay it much attention. Whereas if your CQ is very high, then absolutely you're going to be very inclusive. You're going to want to know more about your staff and your families and the children, their backgrounds, their cultures, their beliefs, and their values. And so it will have an impact on what type of leader you are. And so it is my hope. It seems like most of you so far in this session seem to be very open-minded, and that your cultural intelligence is pretty high. We can go to the, okay, thank you. And so there are some barriers, but we didn't give you the barriers without giving you the solutions, right? And so the first barrier is really huge. And people, especially people of color, sometimes we can feel this a lot, where the unconscious bias and assumptions, where people have biases and they don't even realize it. We also see this sometimes in the classroom, right? I know I had an unconscious bias toward boys because I'm the mother of 3 sons. So whereas most people, the boys are always in trouble, I was always the one taking up for the boys and saying, oh, that's just what boys do, right? Because I had 3 sons and I felt like I kind of understood them a little bit better. But sometimes I might give the boys a little bit more leeway than I should because of that unconscious bias. So the solution was me becoming self-aware and seeking feedback from other people. Has anyone had any experience with the second barrier with limited exposure to different cultures?
I would say, yeah, in a way. We experience a lot of different kids coming in and out and a lot of places that we shop with different people. But like when you say being exposed, I don't believe I've ever had the pleasure of just getting to really know a different culture, like truly understanding it. Like a kid comes in and speaks Spanish, of course, we try to learn Spanish, to include the kid, but what do I really know about a Spanish background? So I will say it's very limited on exposure. I am anyway.
Okay. Thank you for being brave, Miss CC. And so the solution that we're offering is for you to begin to intentionally build relationships with those families and those children and even the staff. If you, um, as you're thinking about increasing your exposure, right? And so being intentional about learning. And even if you do research first, so that you can even feel comfortable with bringing up the conversation with someone, but being intentional about building relationships with diverse families and staff. What about communication challenges from a cultural context? Anybody have that experience?
Hi, this is Michelle.
Hey.
I think I was saying in the group earlier, sometimes culture, well, oftentimes culture. Well, sometimes culture goes beyond just ethnicity. Sometimes it's age differences, and sometimes it's values. And one of my challenges, um, I think particularly when working with people who may have a different view, especially on how you respond to challenging behaviors. Most of the time, at least for me, it's the age factor that comes, that cultural difference, and how we respond to um, challenging behaviors and what their view might be. And so my challenge becomes, how do I address this with the person that I'm consulting with, going by whatever the rules and regulations is. But then if you can't discipline in the way that you've become accustomed to, people tend to throw up their hands or judge the children or even judge the families or even judge themselves. So that one of my challenges communicating on that level.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Michelle, and being brave. So, yeah, the
I,
solution, and we offer, was somebody else?
I was going to say something, but I don't want to cut through what you're
No, no,
saying.
no. Go ahead. Go, go, go.
Back in one of the earlier exercises we did, you asked us, I guess, characteristics of great leaders or good leaders,
Mhm.
and you had a question that had to do with culture. Um, One of my mentors um, taught us years ago in the classroom when you're teaching what went on the board every day. Where were my people and what were they doing? So it didn't matter who you had in the class, Latino, Asian, African, African American, Caucasian. If we were studying 1944, then we hit on, okay, well, what were your people doing during that time? And what were your people doing that time? And even if you couldn't go into debt in the classroom, those could be assignments for extra credit. They came back and they shared. And that way we learned very quickly and quite a bit about different people's culture. We learned the
Mhm.
cultures where people, you don't look them straight in the eye when you talk to them, where you
Mhm.
don't necessarily touch their hand, your hand. So there's so much that you can learn. But that was what I had on my blackboard every day, whether I taught elementary, middle, and high. Where were my people and what were they doing when?
I like that. You said, where are my people
And what were they doing when?
and what were they doing when?
So if we talking about slavery, well, where were the Asians? What were they doing then? Where were the Greeks or the Caucasians? What were they doing then? Where were the Latino? I mean, this way everybody had a chance to feel
Mhm.
a part of this big picture, this big learning picture.
Awesome. Awesome. That you had a very wise mentor to
Muhammad
teach you all
Sadiq,
that.
yes.
Yeah, I
His name is
like
Muhammad
that. And
Sadiq.
I think that I will keep that in the back of my mind too, as a trainer and consultant when I am working with groups, to be inclusive and ask, where are my people and what were they doing, right? Or even what are they doing? So thank you for sharing, Deborah. And so Michelle, multiple communication methods can help. And sometimes you might need a cultural liaison. So maybe a person from that era who has bought into different ways of using guidance and it's worked for them, maybe they can connect a little bit better with some folks. So that's an alternative for us as well. And so the last barrier, resistance to change. Anybody want to share?
I would like to share.
Okay, Deanna.
So just in various years, I am a professional development specialist for ECE. And so I often come into contact with people who have been in the field for many, many years, and they feel like they're comfortable with the way they've been engaging, even though they know in the back of their mind that it doesn't work and it's not working. But it's a comfort level. And the same with new people in the field. They get comfortable in the fact that they're scared to try something new. And so it's trying to overcome that barrier to get them to trust the process, give themselves grace. Um, and I usually try to let them know that, like, I've done it all. I've been in the field for a long time. I've had all the kids, because it's usually like, you don't know my kids. You don't know my struggles. You know, yes, I do. I know that kid. I've had to deal with him. And if you trust this process, it'll work. But it's hard to get that. But it comes from the relationship too.
Oh, Dion, there are so many of us on this in this session that feel you right now. We can relate to what you just said. And yes, so we offer the solution of starting small. The smallest, tiniest change that that person is willing to make, and then making sure that we celebrate that success. And so as we eat the elephant one bite at a time, hopefully they will begin to see, as they see the successes, you know what, this change really isn't as bad as I thought, and it really does work. So thank you all for sharing. That was great. Now, if you had, and I didn't even get mine, so I don't even have my visual. So the next activity might take us back to when we were in school, or for those of us who are in the classroom, where we have show and tell. So you bring something, right, and you tell all about it. I forgot mine, but some of you may have it. So in the workbook, I think it asks, and if not, we're going to do it now. If you don't have the visual, that's fine. Maybe I'll give us 30 seconds to go grab it. But I want you, the whole point of this activity is for you to have something that represents part of your culture, right? Who you are in your culture. And then you show and you tell, and you get to share it with everybody. So we're going to go back into small groups again, because it would take us too long. Hint, hint, for those of us who are still in the classroom, to listen to everybody. That would take up the rest of the session, right? But I'm going to share an example. And so my show and tell item is supposed to be a container of Quaker Oats grits. Okay. And it represents my culture because I grew up in the North. I'm a native of Philadelphia, and we did eat grits in the North. And no, we did not put butter and sugar and milk. My mother used salt and pepper. However, Jim Dandy grits, I had never seen that brand until I came to the South, because in my family, Quaker Oats was the brand that we used, right? And so how that represents me and my leadership style, how does so that's the one thing, first thing. The second thing is, how does that impact you as a leader? Well, me being from the northern region of the country, sometimes we tend to be a little, snappy, or what people might consider a little short-tempered. Whereas I found when I came to the South that a lot of times people who are originally from the South, right, are just a little bit more laid back, more willing to listen a little longer, might take a little longer to tell their story. So I had to check myself in wanting to hear it really quickly, and learning to chill out a little bit, listen a little longer, and give people the opportunity to share how they share. So when you go into your small groups, you're going to think of an object. You can run and get it while we're in transition, and or you can just share what the object would be that represents you and your culture, and then how does your culture impact you as a leader. Okay, is everybody clear?
Do you know anything about eating scrapple?
Yep. Didn't do it as a child, don't do it as an adult. Yeah, all our northern people in the session can relate to that, Dr. Young. So I am going to switch up the rooms, I think. Let's see. Let's recreate these rooms. All righty. And I'm going to give you all, was 8 minutes enough last time, or do you think we'll need more time for this one?
Maybe at least 10.
Okay. All right. So I put 12 minutes on the clock. And so I'm going to open the rooms now. And I hope that we get some juicy stuff to come back and share. And we'll see you in 12. All right. Looks like everyone is back. Back. So we don't have time to hear from everybody, but maybe 2 or 3 people so here's the thing, right? You can either share what you did, or better yet, if you're willing to share maybe some insights that you gathered from listening to people share their culture and how it impacts their leadership. If you've had any insights about yourself, let's do it that way.
I'd like to share kind of a common conversation that we had in our group after we all did our show and tell. We kind of dove a little bit into the loose or broad term culture, and how, even though we might identify culturally with one area, there's so many different things that really determine how we move, from our experience to all of the various organizations and, things that determine what our makeup is. And so like you were saying earlier, the cultural barriers, even though we might identify as, similarities in certain areas, there's still that barrier that makes us different. It might be age, it might be region, that you grew up in, the type of household that you lived in. Like, there's so many things that make up how you move and why you move and how you see things. So it's hard to just say, culture, because there's so many things that qualify what you identify with as far as culture.
Awesome. Thank you, Dion. That is something very valuable to think about, that my culture might be a lot of cultures, right? I might be a part of a lot of different cultures, because as Michelle mentioned, age is one, right? My generation is a culture. My ethnicity is a culture. Me being from the North is a culture. Maybe the music, right? I might be a rock head, and that impacts my culture. I'm not, but that's the first thing that came to my mind. So thank you for sharing that, Dion, that your group sounds like you said, you got deeper into the conversation. Anyone else want to share some insights?
Okay. In our group, we talked about the things that we bought, like myself. My family, we were big on bread. and it's like it was like unity. We were able to break bread and discuss things and talk with each other. And Cece, she said her family was good on braids, so they came together braiding hair and like the patterns and the history and everything. And Michelle, she bought a book, and it was, she said her family was with about language, and all of her family is like educators. And then Bridget, she said technology was her thing. And we also discussed like how we judge people and stuff like that by not having the same, like saying the same thing, like we were saying, like what was it? Like the package store. Some people say the package store instead of saying the liquor store and stuff like that, or going to the bathroom instead of saying I gotta go and do it, instead of saying I have to go to the bathroom. So we discussed that, like those things.
Okay. Yeah, that vernacular that in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, it's the state store because liquor stores are not privately owned in Pennsylvania. So yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one too. Thank you, Stacy, for sharing. All right, let's get one more because this is juicy for me. I'm enjoying this feedback. Alejandra, you're off mute. Did you want to share? Oh, okay. Oh, we don't have another brave soul. Okay. Well, that's okay if we don't. We will move on. But thank you all for sharing both in the large group and in your small groups. So we've been talking about culture and inclusivity. And so here's a model I want to offer to you for inclusive decision making. And the model is called Voice. And I guess you'll figure out why it's called Voice in just a moment. So the first one in the first item in Voice is to validate different perspectives. And just because we validate a perspective doesn't mean we agree with it, doesn't mean that we necessarily can infuse it into the decision, but we want to at least validate perspectives. I know that sometimes I can say to someone, I never thought about it that way because it just wasn't my perspective. So when you validate, excuse me, other people's and you seek input from all of the stakeholders. I like what Tatiana said, that this is a membership driven organization. And so it's not just about what she as the president or the board or even the staff think. It's also about members. What are the members' needs and what do the members want? So the next one is open dialogue, which we've been having a lot of today. But when you think about inclusive decision making, you want to make sure that there's time for open dialogue, whether it's in a meeting or whether it is a separate space where you encourage people to share their thoughts and ideas, and using a translation service when necessary. I know I can't even recall exactly what it was, but I was somewhere recently, and we were on a Zoom, and there was a language barrier. And I was like, wow, if I had, nope, it wasn't even, it was in person at Strolling Thunder. There was a language barrier. And so she was speaking softly, and I had a hard time understanding. So thankfully, there was someone there who did speak her language and was helpful. But in that moment, I felt a little helpless because I couldn't understand what she was saying, so I couldn't meet her needs. The third one, we want to integrate multiple viewpoints. We want to make sure that we are paying attention to traditional as well as innovative. Sometimes, yeah, maybe nobody in this room, but sometimes I've heard, well, we've always done it that way. And just because we've always done it that way doesn't necessarily mean it's the only way, right? And so sometimes listening to innovative ideas, you can often marry the traditional and the innovative when you integrate multiple viewpoints. And then you want to collaborate on solutions. You want to allow, again, ideas from everybody, because there's never just one way to solve a challenge, right? There's more ways than one. There are many roads lead to Rome. And so you want to make sure that we're listening to everyone, because while I might have a solution, my solution might have an adverse impact on some folks that I might not have even thought about if I didn't encourage additional input. So we want to make sure that we are definitely collaborating on solutions. And the final one, we want to evaluate and adjust, right? We want to take the time to take a look at where have we landed? Is this a good space to be? And if not, what adjustments do we need to make so that we can become even better? And so I know that sometimes I think it was Miss Deborah early on when we were talking about the leadership styles, that sometimes you have to make the decision, right? Because as the leader, the buck stops with you. And so even though you've gathered all this information and you've listened to everybody, ultimately, the decision is that, you know, if it's a very high stakes decision, oftentimes the leader will choose to go with, you know, what their feelings are. And then sometimes, even though you're asking for input, depends on what it is. I may not have enough knowledge to feel like I should offer, you know, a solution or a suggestion. And so sometimes leadership, we do have to make those decisions, but we want to be as inclusive as possible. And I'm gonna take a personal moment here, to say that that's one thing I value about our president is she is very inclusive in the decision making, very transparent, and allows us to give some input to decisions that are made about the things that we do. So I appreciate that. So in your workbook on page 6, there's a cultural competence continuum. And there are 5. I'm not gonna read them all out. Actually, the next slide just says cultural competence. And so there's cultural blindness, cultural awareness, cultural knowledge, cultural sensitivity, and cultural competence. I want you to take a few minutes right now to think about, and I'll try to snag it and put it in the chat for anybody who did not have an opportunity to get the workbook. But I want you to just take maybe 2 or 3 minutes to read through them and figure out again where you fall. So one was your leadership, and now we're talking about your cultural competence, your CQ. Let me see if I can grab that.
You just want us to choose the one that we identify with?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Because I'm familiar, I really think I fall. It's hard sometimes, right? I fall somewhere between 3 and 4. Because I'm not sure that I am always intentional about all my practices, right? As much as I want to be there, I think I still have some work to do. And even in writing this training, and doing the research, it just made me think about even when I'm doing trainings that aren't necessarily about cultural competency or cultural relevancy, am I thinking about all of that as I am writing my training? So this was very helpful for me personally, having to write this and think about my own practices. Anybody else want to share? Okay, we've got a 2. Yep. Between 4 and 5. Awesome. A 4, 4. Yeah, yeah. I think sometimes I know I grew up, like I told you, in Philadelphia. My neighborhood was predominantly Black. The elementary school I went to, middle, high school, predominantly Black. Then I came to Atlanta and went to an HBCU. So my first job where there were other cultures that I had to interface with, I was not as comfortable. I felt a little strange because all my life I had not really dealt with other cultures. There were subcultures within my neighborhoods and within my schools, but dealing with just people who were really, really different for me was different. It was kind of like what do we call a culture shock. And I think at that point, I was probably 2, right? My cultural awareness was very low, very low. And I think one of the things we have to do, even for ourselves, right, is to advocate for ourselves. Because if we don't share who we really are and kind of make it known, then people will never know. So while it's our jobs to inquire, I think it's also our jobs as individuals to share, right? To help people who may not have thought about cultural awareness to then begin to become aware. So thank you all for sharing. I see it's good to see nobody, at least nobody was willing to admit if they were a 1. We seem to be falling somewhere between the 2 and the 5, right? So good job, everybody. So yeah, so again, the brave space, there's a lot of work left for us yet to do. So there are also some strategies. I'm not going to take the time to read through them all, but they're on pages 6 through 8 in your workbook, and it just talks about. I will say what the 4 are. So there's building psychological safety, right? And so I didn't have that when I went into that workplace because there was nobody to really reach out and talk to, because I had suddenly gone from being the majority to being the minority. And so I didn't feel psychologically safe to reach out and ask questions. I felt a little bit intimidated, right? And again, encouraging diverse perspectives. Nobody, nobody asked for it. And because I didn't feel very confident, I didn't give it unless I was asked for it. And even then, I think it took me a while to become comfortable to really be honest in my answers. And then we can create leadership opportunities. That was created for me in that workplace. And the longer I worked there and the more I got to know the people and trust the people, I did begin to feel more psychologically safe too. By the time I left this particular company, I must say I was very confident, very, very confident. And one of the things, though, that I feel that they never really quite got all the way there was addressing resistance. Because I think there was some fear and some resistance about digging too deep into cultural differences and really having those transparent and honest conversations. And so I think had they reached that point, then I think it was an amazing company. I love working for them, but I think had they gotten to that point, we would have been even greater than we were. So you just want to make sure that all those strategies are in place, and there are things that you can use in those bullet points to help you when you think about beginning to implement some of this information in your environments. So before we go on to the final stages of our session, does anyone have anything they want to lift up that they want to share or ask? Okay, Wanda.
You know, looking at this continuum, and thinking about the trainings and support that I've offered around cultural competence, cultural sensitivity, all of that, it's really hard to, I'm looking at your slide, right? And you see all these different hands all around the world. It's difficult to know everything about everybody. And so when you look at this continuum, it says we learn about different cultural perspectives. Well, you could drown in trying to learn all cultural perspectives. And I know, you know, working in Head Start, I can't quote the I can't quote the guidance now, but there was a whole thing on cultural sensitivity and responsivity and all of that. And it started with the culture of the children in your classroom. So when you talk about that, I think it was Dion who was mentioning the different all that culture can be, and I even mentioned, you know, organizational culture or classroom culture. And so when we're gauging ourselves, I think a fair way to gauge yourself, or a true way to gauge yourself, is what you're dealing with in the immediate. Because you can't know everything about everything. And, you know, you can start with, if you're dealing with a program and the children in that program and the families in that program, you start there. And then, you know, you can think about your own interactions with people, maybe in your neighborhood. So I think when you're looking at that, you have to put that in perspective, because you're not going to know everything about everybody, but you can at least pay attention to the people who are in your world. And whether it's personal, whether it's family, or whether it's professionally. And then when you're looking at these now, cultural blindness, that is an overall, I think that's an overall kind of approach or perspective. And I think cultural awareness is, but when you get to number 3, you know, you have to look at that, because again, it says build practical application skills. So, you know, this idea of you have some dual language learners in your classroom, and you learn those basic terms and phrases, greetings, names of common objects to connect. But, you know, I mean, that's a practical application skill, and learning about the families in that classroom. But if you've got children who are dual language learners in another language down the hall, you might not necessarily be as concerned about them, because it's not as relevant. So it just made me think about that, because I saw lots of people dropping 4s in the chat, and I gave myself between a 2 and a 3. And I think we have to think about that. You know, this is a huge, 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 wide and deep topic. And it can't be just about the head. It can't be just about, this is what this is, I'm going to define it, and I'm going to do these things, because you're talking about people. So, yeah, just had that insight as I was looking at that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Wanda. And you're right, right? It's a lot. And so I don't know that you ever know it all. And even as we talked about the leadership continuum, right? It depends on the situation, on what decisions I make. So you're right. I think it depends on where we are. and what's the relevancy? I know BCDI Atlanta as an organization, we have typically worked in Metro Atlanta, right? We've done work within the city. And so we are discussing taking our show on the road and reaching out to more rural areas. And we already know that that in and of itself is a different culture, right? And so as we begin to navigate that, we will have to do a lot of asking questions and surveys. And so that we don't want to take something to a group of individuals that isn't meeting their needs because we didn't stop to ask those questions and find out. You know, I live in down the street from the airport. So I have no idea what it feels like to have sketchy internet and to not be able to join the Zoom sessions because, you know, our internet just drops so much. I don't know what that feels like, right? When my internet goes out for just 5 minutes, I'm losing my mind. So thank you for lifting that up, Wanda. I appreciate that. Gives us something. Yep, Michelle said the same thing. So keep going. We're not going to do that part. Ash, you can go to the next slide. So I'll put the workbook in the chat again in case you didn't, because now we're rolling down right to the nitty gritty. And so I did include a little blurb in there about SMART goals because you're going to set some goals for yourself in a minute. And I want us to remember SMART goals, which is just one method because it's morphed so much. Even the SMART goals have interchangeable words, but I think the key to remember is that when you have a goal that you're setting, that you're just specific, that there's a way to measure it so you'll know when you've reached it or how close you are to it or far away from it. That it's something that is achievable. It's within your control to achieve. I would never want to set a goal. That's why I don't bet on sports. I don't have any control over what those players are going to do, right? So I don't know if they're going to achieve the goal of winning or not. Relevant or realistic, right? And time bound, you know, give it a time, right? Because what's that saying? A goal without a due date is just a dream, right? It's just a thought that we have. And so we want to at least have some parameters around when do we, and that can, and again, your goals can change, right? I feel like they should always be evolving because when you reach the goal, well, what's the next step? Can I take it even further? So in your workbook, there are some, oh, Ashley, if you can, no, can't do that. I'll find it. There's a couple pages where we're going to do some reflecting. And in part of that, you're going to, you know, choose an area where you might want to set a goal about how you will improve your own cultural competency or how you will improve on your inclusive leadership. Because while we might be doing a great job, there's always room for improvement. Let's say that's the only room that never runs out of space is the room for improvement. And so I am going to give you all a few moments to work on that. And Ashley, if you would stop the sharing for a moment, I'm going to see if I can get this to work and give you all maybe some quiet music. You know, I've been playing around with some of the things on Zoom. And let's see. Let's see if this one works. Can you all hear that? Nobody's hearing it. Maybe I haven't shared. Can you hear it now? It's very faint. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. It's not too loud, is it? Because it's faint on my end. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you all maybe about 10 minutes to work through that. And it's okay if you don't get all the way finished, because the workbook is something I want you all to take and continue to use and think about.
To clarify, we're working on the goals section.
So actually, I apologize. Actually, pages 9, 10, and 11, as far as you can get, but definitely that first action step is your goal. But I would like for you to also think about your takeaways, because we'll get some responses, and then we'll take this show on down to the end of the road. Thank you for asking. right, we have about a minute, less than a minute. All righty. Well, our time is up. And of course, you all, these are your workbooks to have, and you can always continue to work on them. Any final brave souls want to share anything about their reflections? Actually, yeah, thanks. We have no takers.
I can.
Okay.
I would like to say on the takeaways,
Mm-hmm.
something that challenged my thinking is my true understanding of what culture is.
Mm,
I know what culture is. I know that there are different types of culture, but just hearing the many different viewpoints and many different ways that we all have culture, it just kind of it's not like I didn't know it, but
mm-hmm.
just hearing and really getting a better understanding of it. So when somebody asks a question, oh well, what's one of the questions? How could we implement more things about culture?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I know that I actually have to do my research. And when I do my research, it's not just African tribe, or Hispanic, you know, more about Hispanic culture. I need to really be asking questions like, where do they currently live? What is it like for them? Yeah, they may be Hispanic, but how long have they been in America? Maybe they have American traditions that create a different culture for their family than it does for others. I just have a better understanding of, how I can do better and understand culture better.
So thank you, Miss CC. That means we did our job. That means this session did what it was supposed to do. Anyone else before we wrap it all the way up and take you down with our announcements? Bridget.
Yes, thank you so much. And I appreciate everyone's patience. I was driving, but I was committed that I was going to hop on this session today. And this is a hard topic, and you could be all around, hovering all around the thing and never get to the thing. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk on this topic and see how it interplays with more than we know. And that self-awareness piece, knowing where we are and how it fits together. And then just piggybacking off of what Miss Wanda shared, it is deeper than we think this connectivity is. And and I found it. That's why I said, let me get on so I can learn more about it, because I can have all the knowledge in the world, but it's not going to matter, and change is not going to happen if I'm not implementing it. We could have, but the thing is to do something with it. So I just appreciate these opportunities to be able to get a confidence built up, have more tools in the tool chest, and be able to talk with a level of transparency that's not in judgment, so that we can learn, and more importantly, put it into practice so people can be validated, seen, and heard. So I appreciate this so much. And I'm not biased in a way that, oh, I'm a part of BCDI, so I'm saying these things. I'm saying no, even more so. And during these trying times, and I'm with BCDI Atlanta. So kudos to all the above.
Awesome. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you. So I'm my co partner here is going to take us down the home stretch. Ashley's been really quiet, so we're going to give her an opportunity to hear her voice. Meanwhile, I'm going to put the link to our evaluation survey. And so if you're on your laptop and you want to go ahead and open that up, it will also be in our follow-up email that you should get within 24 hours of today's session.
Thank
Take
you
it away.
so much, Sharon. I appreciate it. All of this information, you all. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you all being a part of our first Leans Latte and Learning. Many, many more to come. And we really appreciate all of the involvement. Hearing your feedback has been amazing. I am Ashley Williams. I'm the operations coordinator here at BCDI Atlanta. I've been in the backgrounds, kind of running the show in the background, listening in. And again, it's been such an amazing experience. I'm so thankful for you all joining us today. My job now is to do the little wrap-ups, right? And so first, I want to start with ways to get involved. If you are familiar with BCDI Atlanta, you know we close out every session, every meeting with just some reminders on how you can stay partnered with us. And so our ways to get involved are always going to be, first things first, become a member. We like to say join the family here at BCDI Atlanta. If you are a part of any groups or experiences where you meet together a few times a year, you come together, advocate, collaborate, we are the group for you in terms of education and family engagement as well. And so we want to give you an opportunity to join us here at BCDI Atlanta. It is bcdiatlanta.org/members. I'm putting that in the chat as well. Please, please, please go look at all of the different membership variations we have for you. There's a little something for everybody, students, nonprofits, companies, all of the above, right? And so please become a part of our family and stay in the loop and a part of this community. Also, you can join our Lean group. So, of course, Lean is our leadership and equity advancement network. That's the whole reason we're here, right? Together, joining together in this time. So we want to make sure not only are you a part of BCDI Atlanta as a whole, but you are a part of our Lean community. We have posts and resources and dialogue going on. It's a very similar setup to Facebook. And so if you know how to navigate your Facebook pages, you can definitely navigate our Lean community. And so our Lean community is going to be linked on our website, but you also can reach out to any of us if you have any issues with that. But I'm going to also put that link here in the chat, okay? And so join Lean, join BCDI Atlanta overall. And then our next way that you can get involved, this is a big deal, right? So we have quite a few upcoming events. Our biggest upcoming event is Wednesday, a few days away, our 6th annual Culturally Responsive Early Education and Care Leadership Summit. This year, we are really focusing on the theme, elevating the culture, embracing all voices, which really falls in line with the conversation we've been having here today, making sure everyone is seen and heard and valued and held up to the same standard as the others. And so we want to make sure you all are a part of our summit. If you have not registered, register today. If you are registered and you think someone else could benefit from a day of networking and sessions and community and vendors and all of the things, make sure you notify them of an opportunity to really gather with other educators, other leaders, other advocates, all of the above, to make sure you are becoming a part of our extended family. Everyone who's in attendance is not a member, so you don't need to be a member to come. But you are becoming a part of our extended family here at BCDI Atlanta. And so we want to make sure that you all are registered for our summit as well. And Sharon, if you don't mind putting that in the chat for me as well, I see she's making sure all the links are there. So I appreciate you. And so Our next quarterly affiliate meeting is another way you get to kind of eavesdrop. If you're going to date us for a while, right? If you're not ready to make the commitment, you're going to date us for a while, we will invite you to our quarterly affiliate meeting. It's a great opportunity to come in and see what BCDI Atlanta is doing, right? You learn about what our priorities are. You learn about what our programs are in more depth than you do in a regular conversation. And so we invite you to come to our next quarterly affiliate meeting, April the 8th. You just stayed us a little while. And happy Valentine's Day, by the way. All right. So if you enjoyed today, if you enjoyed the content and enjoyed the conversation, we ask that you take action. So we have our share your story, which is our impact form. We would love to hear some feedback. How did you think today went? What other topics you would like to have? You're going to be getting the survey as well. It gives you an opportunity to kind of put some of that information on there. But we would love for you to share your story so we can broadcast the impact that BCDI Atlanta is having through these lean lattes and learnings. You can also give. So we are a membership-driven organization. We are a grant-funded, resourced organization as well. And so donations help us do this work in an unrestricted way. And so you are more than welcome to give and donate to us. We know taxes are coming up, all the things, so it won't go for this one, but for next year, definitely we can make sure you get those receipts. So also becoming a member, again, we want you to join our family. We would love to have you a part of the BCDI Atlanta network, and then subscribe to our newsletter. So if dating us is just coming to events, kind of checking us out, subscribing to our newsletter is like our text thread, okay? It's going to keep you in the loop of everything that's going on. And we want to make sure that you get all of the announcements for not only events, but advocacy opportunities for all types of different things, our community engagement. You will get a little bit of everything. Miss Sharon, who is our fearless programs coordinator, has been doing amazing work with our activity guides. And so if you are subscribed to our newsletter, you will get first dibs on a lot of those activity guides. And so you make sure you check us out in that way. And if there are any questions, concerns, you can always reach out to us. We are here for you. Follow us on social media, tag us in your feedback. For those of you who will be attending the summit next week, I'm so excited to see you. Those of you who are thinking about it, reach out. Let us help push you over the edge for you to be there. And if you have any questions or concerns about today, I will be sending out a follow-up email with the PDF slides and a recording, as well as the link to our workbook if you have not been able to open that. And so they will be in the follow-up email that you receive. And we really appreciate you being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ms. Sharon, you want to say the final goodbyes?
Yeah, I just appreciate the engagement that this group provided today. Thank you all for showing up and being present and being brave. We appreciate you. And hopefully we will see you next quarter at our second Lane Lattes and Learning. I'm not sure what we're going to be doing yet, but I think there's a place on that survey for you to tell us, and feel free to put in the chat if there are other topics and things that you want to know and learn about. Feel free to pop it in the chat, put it on the survey so that we can meet your needs.
One of the comments, if I may, if BCDI Metro is trying to expand, you're sitting next to a person there, Bridget, that also hosts a weekly chat session, and they have anywhere from 30 to 80 people on their weekly chat. So, BCDI may want to reach out to GAY and say, hey, Bridget, I just thought I'd give it, since we're all in the same ballpark,
yeah,
early childhood and childcare.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Those of you who are like duly noted, and yes, and people are missing out, but the void will be filled quickly with people that want to move forward.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Again, thanks to everyone who showed up. We appreciate it.
Want to stop the recording?